Hey guys, Rick Titan here again, and welcome to the Spirit of Success. Who says you can't be spiritual and have all the money too? In this lifetime, you can do whatever you so choose. And today, we've got Calgary icon, none other than Joe Forzani with us. Great to have you with us, Joe.
Oh, thanks a lot. We really appreciate being here, Rick.
Awesome. So you're a football player, Stampeders. What gave you the drive and determination to become a football player in the beginning?
We sort of pursue things that we're good at. And, when I was in elementary and junior high school, I was pretty fast. I didn't realize it at the time, but I was pretty fast, and I was fairly good size. And, I was just blessed with athletic ability that I didn't know I had, but I pursued it. And I just kept playing and running faster and playing all the different sports. And finally, football was the one that sort of stuck to me. There was hockey, there were some other things, but I just pursued it as far as I can. I'm a firm believer to challenge yourself in life and go as high as you can. And because we've only got one life. Like, we've only got one pass at this thing, at least one conscious life. But in my opinion, given this ability to live on this life, my philosophy has always been go for the top, go for the best, push yourself in the ability that you were blessed with. Mm-hmm. And that's what I did.
That's beautiful. That's awesome. I always agree with the same thing, being a former professional wrestler. Yeah. Now, I had a real challenge getting out of my profession at the age of 29, and from our conversations before, you kind of glided right through it pretty smoothly. You had a nice exit to football. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Well, when I went to university, I went on a football scholarship to Utah State University. I was in just north of Salt Lake City, and I had a scholarship to play. I went there, played there for 4 years, and when I first went down in my first year, all I did was want to play football. But as I started to take classes, I started to sort of grow up and mature into a state of, like, what do I want to be? And I got an education degree. And I didn't think that was enough, so I came and I tried out with the Philadelphia Eagles. Didn't make it, went and played in Canada for 10 years. But I wanted more education, so I went back and got a master's degree in psychology, of all things. That's something that you've been looking at, I know. And sort of from there, I started teaching school, and I tried the oil and gas business. And I sort of got prepared for when I was going to leave football. So it was just like moving from one job to another. It was kind of a lateral move for me. And it never really bothered me. The greatest thing is that, with all these brain injuries and everything else that's going on physically in the game today, it's a good thing that I sort of moved on and challenged myself in other areas. And so the transition, I prepared myself. I consciously prepared myself with taking courses, with other interests that I started to read about. I took night school courses. I did whatever I needed to do to expand my horizon in something other than football, and it worked out really good, really good.
Yeah, you're very fortunate that way, and of course intelligent that way. Now, after football, what stirred you and your brothers to create this phenom of success in the sport check stores?
Well, that's a good point. It was my brother John that was responsible for the idea and the sort of enthusiastic execution of Forzani's locker room. That was our first name when we started off. But John had this idea. He went to Utah. By the way, my two brothers followed me to Utah State. My brother John came down and got a football scholarship 2 years after I did. And my brother Tommy followed me to Utah State 3 years after I did. So we all went to Utah State, and we all came back and played for the Stampeders. Well, my brother John was really focused on sort of getting it to be an entrepreneur in the sporting goods business. And he followed a friend of his, Phil Olson. Remember Merlin Olson, Little House on the Prairie? Yeah. Big guy, played for the Los Angeles Rams. His brother Phil was my brother John's good friend. John went to visit him in L.A. and saw this new footwear phenomenon store called a Foot Locker start up back in the mid-'70s. And he brought that concept back to us. He said, you know what, Joe? He said, we should open up a store called Forzani's Locker Room, because the three of us are playing for the Stampeders. That's when Tommy came back, when we were all playing for the Stampeders. And he said, you know what? People know the name. People can sort of deal with some familiarity, some sort of honesty. We've got credibility playing with the Stampeders. Why don't we do that? So there's another gentleman that we played with, Basil Bark, a really good friend of mine today. We all sort of pooled small amounts, just $10,000 each. Mm-hmm. And my dad built the store, and we opened up our first athletic footwear store. Forzani's Locker Room was on 17th Avenue, right across the street from Western Canada High School. It's now sort of a dry cleaner, whatever else there. But, you know, as I drive by, there's never a time that I don't look back. Any time that you make a conscious decision to try something new, there's a positive side and there's a negative side, you know. And we can dwell on the negative side till the cows come home. But, you know, that's really not what motivates you. It might be something, well, fear can be a motivator, but really it's the positive side is what can you get out of this? What can you pursue? How can you help society? How can you help the world? And don't be afraid to pursue those avenues. And, you know, the negative side, well, you know, if it doesn't work out, there's always something else you can do. So I think that sort of in choosing a career and choosing your future, I think it's a positive attitude is very important.
Joe, tell us about the legacy of the Forzani family. Everybody wants to know. We have a few ideas on it, but please share with us the rest of the story.
Well, you know, Rick, it goes way back. I mean, my mother and father were both Italian. My dad was an immigrant. He came here when he was 13 years old. And my mother was actually born here, first generation Italian. And they lived in Bridgeland, Riverside, and they met there, and courted there, and had 3 boys. But you know, when I was raised, I mean, my dad was like, we were poor. My dad was an entrepreneur. Actually, he bought a service station, but he worked in box factories. He had a grade 3 or grade 4 education. I mean, 13 years old, they didn't have ESL at that time, so they put him in the grade 1. I mean, how'd you like to be 13 years old in grade 1? You know, and obviously kids laughed at him, and, you know, he went the next year till he was 14, and he got a little bit of English, and he went out in the work world, and he started working. Like I said, he worked in box factories. He worked, you know, janitorial work, hard labor, cement, you know. I mean, he came up the real hard way, and when he bought the service station, it was a White Rose service station. He owned it for about 40 years. And I was very young when he owned that. I mean, Rick, he taught himself mechanics and paint and body work and whatever the electrical basis for a car. He taught himself that. He couldn't read or write. He couldn't read or write. But yet he, you know, I mean, we watched him go to work. I mean, he would go to work. I mean, when we got up to school, he'd be at work at 6 o'clock in the morning. I mean, when we came home, we'd never eat with him. He'd always come in at 8:30. He'd always be dirty, you know. But, you know, he and his brother just worked, you know, morning, noon, and night. And we used to go up there and try to help him, you know, by pumping gas, cash jockeys, or, you know, trying to hand him tools or whatever. So my dad was a real handyman. But, man, did we ever learn a lot from him about how he did things, what his attitude was? He used to always tell us things like to be really close as brothers. You know, that was our philosophy. Stay close because there's a lot of people that are going to try to tear you down. But, you know, as a family and as brothers, you got to really be close. I mean, that's our philosophy. But so here's me raised in a family. My mother, she got her grade 12. Never did work after. She elected to be a real true mother. And she was there for us when we came home from school and whatever else we did. She cooked for us and she did everything for us. But, I mean, I had no money when I was a kid. I had nothing. We had nothing. We had to go out and we had to go the hard way and believe in ourselves and believe in what our parents told us about ourselves. Because, you know, like there is a lot of people out there that don't have your back or that want to take a strip out of your back. But basically, who are the true people that lead us in life? It's our parents, number one, and it's up to them. It's up to us to be good parents. Hopefully, I've got two kids and who I love dearly. Hopefully, I've been good parents to them, because that's the number one guide in life, is to be a good parent. Listen to what they have to say and believe what they say is true. And so with us and my two brothers, we followed that guideline. We had pure ethics in terms of trying to make ourselves the best people we could, because that's what our parents told us every day. Every day, Joe, you got to believe in yourself. You got to keep trying harder. My dad used to say to me constantly, take more time and do it right. That's what I learned in my business, he used to say when he fixed cars. Take more time and do it right. So, consequently, I took my time. I made sure that things were done properly. And I keep trying to do that today.
Mr. Forzani, can you tell me where your life is heading right now? I mean, I know a lot of people are thinking about retirement and things like that, but you're still just such a go-getter. What do you have in front of you right now?
Well, that's a good question. I just finally sort of put everything aside, and I'm what they might call sort of fully retired. And when I say fully retired, I mean from a job. Retirement for me is being retired from a job that has stress. Since I sort of packed in the sort of routine of 9 to 5 work, is to carry on in my life without stress. I'm going to leave that alone. And so now my whole life is giving back, and it's learning new and different things. It's working with my kids, and trying to make sure that they're on the road to success themselves. My daughter just got a job in the wine business in Kelowna. She works for a company called Noble Ridge, which is a very neat, nice winery there. But, she's so enthusiastic about her job. Rick, something that I've seen about people that are enthusiastic, you can see it. Mm-hmm. You can actually see the way she talks. Like when I normally used to talk to her, I'm on the phone for 2 to 5 minutes, how are things going? I'm asking her. Now I'm on the phone for an hour, and she's educating me about the wine business, and I can't get her off the phone. So my point is, if you're employed today, look for enthusiastic people. It's evident. They like to talk. They're always smiling. They're just basically good people. Look somebody in the eye and you can see a lot of personality about them. So my thing today is to go along and learn as much as I can. I love to travel. I help some entrepreneurs in their businesses where I can, and I don't like to charge because I feel like I'm giving back. Whatever I've learned, I'm giving back for other people to sort of carry on in the same way. That way I don't have any stress. And I like to see them grow and see them do. Rick, I just got back from Ecuador. I spent all of July in Ecuador. I was on a 2-week mission. I've never been on a Christian mission. I'm with Center Street Church, and went down with 12 people to Ecuador we actually built 2 bathrooms, if you can believe this, in a very, very poor area of Quito. And I've never done that before. I've always read about people sort of building houses and building whatever for the poor. And I finally did it, and it was extremely hard work, but I loved it. I loved it. I really felt like I was contributing. It's amazing how many spiritual people travel through all these underprivileged countries and actually help out the way they do. It's amazing. I learned a lot there. I then went to the Galapagos Islands, and I took an 8-day cruise around the equator. But my point is, I'm learning a lot. I'm changing. I'm evolving like Darwin saw his theory of evolution. Things sort of evolve. Things change, and sort of I'm adapting to that, and I love it. But there's no stress. There's no stress.
Hey guys, Rick Titan here, and that's another episode of The Spirit of Success. And remember, you call the shots.